Hello there, and welcome to The Spread, NESN's Football Picks Podcast. I'm NESN.com's Mike Cole, joined once again, and as always, by NESN.com's Ricky Doyle. Ricky, we are back in the dojo.
Sure are.
It's
Very enthusiastic opening right there, too, which I'm feeling pretty good
whoa.
about the picks.
About what?
The days,
the picks? Okay.
This season. I feel like, I don't know, like I'm starting to get the football itch a little bit. I wasn't for a while, and I don't know if it's just because I've been devoting more brain power to whatever I have left to football these past couple of days. Yeah. But I'm in a good spot.
I mean, what are we, 35 seconds in?
Yeah.
I'll talk about it already. The weather might be part of it. I mean, we're going to go right into weather as we do just about every week. It's been a little more manageable, a little cooler the last couple of days. You feel that nip, that chill.
Maybe that's
in the
what
air.
it is.
Sun's going down much earlier
It's
too.
like
that's tough.
There's a distinct the sun when it comes in through the blinds a certain way when you're getting ready for work in the morning. I think that's what it is for me.
It's unbelievable. We'll get off on a tangent, whatever. We're gonna make our some season long prop bet picks. We'll just kind of use our picks as a way to kind of roll through the season. But we have to get some things out of the way. It's been 6 months since we last talked. Like, we have not spoken at all in the last 6 months. Not whatsoever.
Not seeing you, no.
It is unbelievable how the human brain just rolls with the punches in that regard. And you do it, 35 years, 37 years, whatever it is on this earth, and you really start to pick up on those cues. And I know exactly what you're saying. I can tell you what day it is just by the vibe I have at certain points in the day.
Yep. I think, too, it's like my apartment gets hot as hell during the summer. So now that
you looked into air conditioning?
It's cool. Well, I have, yeah. but still, when I come home from work before I turn it on, it's like an oven in there.
Of course.
So it's like that, that first 15, 20 minutes that you get settled in is not good. So I haven't had to deal with that this week. It's been comfortable, right, when I walk in the door. So maybe that's the telltale.
And now you are exactly. Now you're queued up on on football.
So my internal temperature is right where it needs to be.
Good. I'm glad. Regarding your general excitement to football and this project and just kind of our weekly chats.
Yeah.
I look forward to checking back in like week 6 when you're coming off of a 3-14 week and
you're giving me 6 weeks.
You're miserable.
I'd take the under on that.
That's a fair point.
Wait till this is the season preview. Wait till we get into the.
I do love the idea of like look at the look on our face right now. We are
we're gonna be
relatively.
That's the thing too. We got the video component now.
Yeah,
people
that's
have
a good
to look
point.
at us again. Which God bless you.
We're relatively tan. As tan as we're gonna get. We got full of life. You're rocking a polo today.
Yeah, we're gonna have hair coming out of our ears at the end of the year.
And it's just gonna
crap.
be I am so miserable.
Need to trim our fingernails and stuff now. There's a lot more that goes into it.
That's a fair point.
It'll look presentable.
I thought about that this morning. I was shaving, and I was like, if I cut myself, it's gonna affect the workload of a lot of people today.
Yeah. This will be a good contrast. We'll do a season preview side by side with week 18.
It's like when the picture of the president
bags
after
under
4 years.
Yeah.
It's just like the pictures of Obama looks youthful, spry in whatever 2008, and then by the end of it,
I'm sure if you look back for a few years ago when we were doing this, when we had the video component initially, there's who knows?
Yeah,
who knows what we were looking like that.
We might have gotten into literal hibernation there for a while when we weren't on camera. I do. I go back every once in a while to look up things from old shows, and it's just like, God, it's so youthful, so full of life, and you have no idea that the world's about to just kill us and just crush us down. So
I like to think we're sharper than ever, though.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we're seeing things.
Sharp as a tack.
Which is probably because we don't care as much as that's the thing. Once you can let go, you can start to really embrace what it is. We are basically we're cockroaches at this point. That's if I were to to describe our existence on this show and just generally speaking in this company, it'd be cockroach.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think that's a good place to start, though. Given the premise of the show. Hopefully.
Yeah,
hopefully we get some returning listeners. But who knows?
Note number 1: cut down on the mindless banter.
Yeah, we're already
5
off
minutes
and running
about
with
nothing.
that.
Yeah, so we're going to reconvene every week. We'll give our NFL picks against the spread in conjunction, I guess, with NESN bets, if you want to call it that. We're going to we'll also put up our picks every week. Full. Well, we're gonna change things up a little bit this year, but we will, I guess, technically pick every game on the NFL slate against the spread for NESNbets.com. But yeah, we will join each other in this space every week to kind of go over our favorite picks of the week, and we'll do that starting week 1. Excuse me. But, we always kind of wrestle with how we want to do a preview show, right? And I think we found a fairly decent, companion to what we're going to do. We don't want to sit here and run through every division. That's kind of boring. We're not smart enough anyway, so we'd rather zero in on the things we really like. So I proposed to you, and you volleyed back and forth, and we came up with this ridiculously titled tiering of picks.
Well, we just named it what it is, really.
Exactly.
So we didn't really dress it up too much.
So we're going to start with short shots, which are 10-1 and shorter, are our favorite picks. Then we'll go to mid shots, the long shots, which everyone is familiar with. The mid shots 10-1 to 25-1, long shots 25-1 and longer. And then we have our Hail Mary bets, which are 100-1 and longer. And then we'll do a couple other things. We'll get out of here. So I think we've talked enough. Do you have anything else to add? Any thoughts?
No, I
think
this is a good formula.
Months?
I think it allows us to touch on a lot of topics, and I think that's what we try to do week to week. Even it's like we have our
whether it's football or not,
3 bets of the week. That we are most confident in, but use those as a launching pad to talk about other stuff across the league because. We don't claim to be experts in anything. What is it? Jack of all trades, master of none. I think that sums us up pretty well.
Us to a T.
So I think that this is a nice little formula we have because season previews in the past seem to drag on. So, and we're making up for it by rambling on now. But
speaking of dragging on, what's your short shot?
Short shot. So this is
10-1 and shorter.
10-1 and shorter. So I'm going in the NFC West, which could be a dumpster fire of a division outside of maybe 1 or 2 teams. But I'm looking at Matthew Stafford to lead the NFC West in passing yards at plus 200. At FanDuel, that is the same odds as Brock Purdy and behind Geno Smith, who's the favorite at plus 110. I just think if you look at Stafford, obviously there's still some question marks about his health, but the 10 seasons he started at least 16 games, set at least 4,200 passing yards 9 times. That includes 2021, the Super Bowl year, with 4,800. You look at Geno Smith, clearly balled out last season in that big contract. Even then, 4,200 yards about. I think there's still an element to Pete Carroll that loves to run the football, so I think that's gonna trim into Geno Smith's numbers a little bit. Brock Purdy, season high last season, 284. Jury's still out on him. You extrapolate that over 17 games, you're getting to the 4,800 mark. I don't think he's gonna come anywhere close to that though. So I think this is just one, Stafford being the most proven quarterback in that division, but also the fact that the Rams are going to be probably trailing a lot this season, especially given their regression on defense. So if you get him back, even just 80 to 90% healthy, you get Cooper Kupp back, and they've got some other playmakers there. I think at plus 200, this is a fairly decent bet.
I like it. I think you're probably right. If I had to pick one, I would pick him. Again, this is the thing we'll just continue to hammer on. Value is hard to find, especially on these quote unquote short shots, because I don't know. The thing I do like though is you talked about regression. I think there's going to be positive regression with that offense, just by virtue of guys being healthy.
Still around.
Yeah,
it's just.
Van Jefferson feels like a guy who's about to take another leap. That seems like
really the only thing I think that would prevent this from happening is the health factor, right? If Stafford misses a few games and that,
or Cooper Kupp is dinged up too.
Yeah, but I just think this team more so than the others in that division is going to be more geared towards airing it out a little bit, and we've seen over the years what he's. Even when they don't win games, going back to his days in Detroit, even when Stafford isn't winning games, he's still putting up the numbers. So I think that's another thing. Another aspect of this bet was focusing more so on the stat side of things than the Rams necessarily taking a jump forward. I do think they could be better than they were last year, which isn't saying much. But I think they could surprise some people, given that they do still have a fairly decent core. But again, I'm not really willing to put my money where my mouth is when it comes to their win total or anything like that. So I'm more looking at the Stafford props and things of that nature.
Interesting. for my short shot, I'm staying in the West, but the AFC West.
Oh, excellent.
I think one of my prevailing thoughts, and I'm going to write this for NESNbets.com at some point. I just haven't gotten around to it. As part of our season,
no spoilers.
As part of our season preview stuff is, I think I am down, relatively speaking, on the Chiefs to the point where I would not be shocked if they miss the playoffs. I think you look at the odds, and the odds bear this out. I think they're more likely to miss the playoffs than they are to win the Super Bowl, which is probably a no-duh statement for most teams, but I think they're 6-1 to win the Super Bowl, plus 360 to miss the playoffs. For the sake of this short shot, I'm taking them under 10.5 wins. It's an alternate win total, plus 175 at FanDuel. I just look at, sharp football analysis, which we refer to a ton. I thought there was some interesting stuff with projected win totals and strength of schedule. If you look at the Chiefs, they had the 4th easiest schedule entering 2022, or maybe it was they had what is all said and done. I don't know. They played an easy schedule last year.
Point taken.
And coming into this year, based on projected win totals, they have the 28th toughest schedule. Now, that's the biggest jump in competition of any team in the NFL this year. Also, what else was it? Also per sharp, only 2 teams, the Rams and the 49ers, speaking of the NFC West, have a worse net rest edge at minus 13. The Chiefs are minus 13, which means their opponents have a cumulative 13 days more of rest over the course of the season. So they're going to be playing some short weeks or playing teams that are coming off of a bye and are rested. So that's a tough spot for them. You're going back to the hardest schedules thing. Of the 7 teams that actually had the hardest schedules last season, only 2 went to the playoffs. And of the 11 teams that had the hardest schedules, only 3 went over their win totals. And I think I'm getting, that 10.5 gets me down a little bit. It gets me some plus money. I just look, the division's tough too. The Chargers, I think, could be one of the best regular season teams in the NFL this season. I think Kellen Moore is going to improve that offense. Herbert should take a jump. Broncos should at least see some improvement year over year with Peyton. Like, they're just, the Denver games aren't going to be layups. And I think Vegas, you can at least see a path to improvement with Jimmy Garoppolo. So there's that. And then you look at their non-divisional road games this year. Jacksonville, which is a playoff team last year, a lot of people like them. The Jets, obviously with Aaron Rodgers, and it sounds like they might be okay this year. Minnesota made the playoffs last year. Green Bay is whatever, and then the Patriots is always tough to go play that defense. They also have home games against Miami, Philadelphia, Buffalo, and Cincinnati. So you're going to see a ton of the Chiefs this year. They're going to be prime time across the board. But I don't know. Maybe they're a dynasty, but it just feels like there's some negative regression here.
I mean, I'm with you.
Yeah,
I'm with you on being down on them, but I was also pretty down on them for a good chunk of last season as well.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think I had in our preview last year, I had they won't have a 5-game winning streak bet, and then they hit it. So
it's just one of those things. I mean, there is a little bit of turnover when you consider what Eric Bieniemy gone as offensive coordinator. Like, and at what point is Travis Kelce not going to be Travis Kelce?
Sure.
What is he, 34 now?
Yeah.
34, 35. So, like, there's going to come a year, right, where they're really tested in the weapons department, and maybe this is it.
And I think just as importantly on the defense, Chris Jones holding out. He even said, I think today or yesterday, he's willing to wait until the drop-dead day of week 8 to come back. I like Steve Spagnuolo as a Springfield guy, but I think he's at his best, weirdly enough, in the playoffs. Like, they have some ups and downs in the regular season. So if it's just, I think there's less margin for error for them.
It's very much reminiscent of the Patriots dynasty.
Sure.
Only the Patriots had the rest of the AFCs to beat up on, even in when they looked the leanest. The Chiefs don't have that luxury.
Correct.
Which you alluded to, and I'll touch on this a little bit more as my long shot bet, little tease there. But yeah, it's just it requires a leap of faith to say that the Chiefs aren't going to make the playoffs or aren't going to be one of the legitimate Super Bowl contenders. But it feels more so with them than a lot of the other top 4 or 5 teams that things could start to go south, and it's just, I mean, it's all contingent on one player, more or less. The player and the coach, right? Yep. I mean, if Patrick Mahomes isn't Patrick Mahomes, then what is this team?
Yeah, I chickened out. I probably should just gone with the playoff one and really tried to cash in there, but for half the price, I think, because they could still get in with 10 wins. I would hit this bet. Also, I just wanted to share this story with you. I was at Stop and Shop the other day, and I walk in and I'm wearing my Packers hat, as I do, because I'm a Packers fan. And some guy is just sitting there with his cart in the chair next to the blood pressure machine. He goes, "Hey, can I talk to you for a sec?" I'm like, "Yeah, I guess so." He's like, "What do you think of love?" And I started talking about football and stuff. And so this guy reveals to me that he goes, "You know Patrick Mahomes?" I was like, "Yeah, I know Patrick Mahomes." He's like,
Familiar with
who do you think told John Dorsey to draft him?" And I was like, "Man, I don't know, man. Who?" And he goes, "Me."
Him, yeah.
And he goes, "Tyreek Hill? I also told him to draft him." So he goes on and tells me about how football is very easy to just. He worked for the Chiefs for a while because he was part of Mensa, and like they had to deal with Mensa, so he went and worked for the Chiefs for nothing.
Sure.
But he told me he also made like $14 million in stocks this year. So I just think that's a sign to faith the Chiefs this year.
I mean,
because this guy's sitting in a Stop and Shop in Bedford.
But did we figure out what his blood pressure situation is?
He was just waiting. He was. I don't want to out the guy. Maybe he's a listener, but he was waiting for the bus, so he wasn't actually getting his.
Oh, all right.
He had his cart, and then I saw him again later. He was kind of just doing the rounds.
So if it was a lie, you might want to take everything with a grain of salt.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, he seemed sharp as a whip. I just don't totally. I should have. I wish I could go back in time and ask him more questions, like, did you get a ring?
Yeah.
A few other things, but.
Some things are better left unsaid.
So if he's that important, he's no longer there. That could be an issue. You talk about, So I looked it up. I was like Googling, like Mensa
searching
Chiefs.
I was gonna say, but it's just like pouring through Google images.
I didn't find anything.
Hey, that's the guy.
Yeah.
All right.
What's your mid shot?
Mid shot
10-1 or
10-1 to 25-1. Quite a range there. I'm gonna look to the AFC North, and I'm going to take the Ravens and Browns to finish 1-2 exact, and that is 12-1 at DraftKings.
That's pretty good.
So
you don't like, so you're down on the Bengals.
This obviously is a reflection of the Bengals to some extent.
We will get into that later.
But it's also more so just I'm pretty high on both of these teams. I mean, I think Baltimore in particular, you look at the weapons that they've surrounded Lamar Jackson with, and I think we'll probably touch on that later as well. You bring in a new offensive coordinator. The defense looked invigorated last year after the Roquan Smith deal, so I think the arrow's pointing up for them. And they're so well coached that they're always going to be a factor. For them, it's a matter of staying healthy, which is feels like it's been a decade-long battle for them at this point. But all things being equal, I think that they're among the top teams in the AFC. And I'm pretty high on the Browns. And I don't know, I might be on an island with that, or they're kind of, you're not hearing too much about them. And I think that, it makes a lot of sense. The last you saw of them was, it really could not have been worse for Deshaun Watson in that short stint last year. But for me, it's more so the defense. You bring in Jim Schwartz to take over that defense. You add some upgrades, Zadarius Smith, Dalvin Tomlinson in the middle. Hopefully help that run defense, which was porous last year. That offensive line, as long as it's healthy, it's still among the best in the NFL. You get an elite running back. I just think, if they can get the same production from Deshaun Watson that they got from Jacoby Brissett at the beginning of last year,
fair, yeah,
they'll be up there, capable of contending. Your hope obviously is you get more than that, in which case that brings them to another level. And then for me, the Bengals thing, I just feel like their defense is sort of trending in the wrong direction. And like I was saying to you earlier, it's as much as I love Joe Burrow, it's just watching that offensive line. It improved last year, but his calf being what it is, anytime he goes down, it's just going to be, you're holding your breath to an extent. So at 12-1, Ravens, Browns, I do think too that you might get 3 playoffs teams from this division, because I'm not writing Cincinnati off. I think they're still going to be a factor, but I'm looking at, this division plays the AFC South and the NFC West. you can cover some ground with those two divisions. So I think you're going to get 3 playoff teams from this division. And, yeah, I'm going to go Ravens, Browns 1-2.
Yeah, I mean,
I probably should have looked into 1-2-3 Ravens, Browns.
Now
Bengals.
you're talking. Yeah, I mean, sound reasoning. I'm higher on the Bengals than you are by the sounds of it. I'm with the group think, the hive. I don't love the Browns. I think I don't totally believe in karma, but if football karma does exist, the Browns might be in the midst of eating a major helping of it in terms of, like, Deshaun Watson looked so bad. I know that it was very adverse situation last year, and
I mean, I would have been
a lot of it of his own doing, but, like, he looked really bad.
Yeah, I think I would have been more shocked if he looked good, though. You miss a whole year, you come back and miss, what was it, 11 games?
Yes, but, like, aren't you? Yeah, fair. He's supposed to be good,
I don't think
though.
he just, like, forgot how to play football.
I hope he did.
Like, I mean, he's what, turning 28?
Yeah.
Like, I think we're kind of forgetting how good this guy was.
No, I know, yeah. I hope he's not, though. Not,
yeah,
no
I mean,
offense to you.
Look,
but...
it's not an easy pick to root for by any stretch of the imagination.
So you're a big Deshaun Watson guy. Is what
yeah,
I get
mean,
from this.
let's just let's put that to rest real quick.
The Chiron right under your big
Yeah.
Deshaun Watson guy.
Look, I'm betting on talent. All right, I'm betting on talent. But really though, it is like, for me, I think it's the defense more than Deshaun Watson.
Okay.
I think that defense is going to take a big step forward this year.
They might.
And if that's the case, then this team, because I think we know what its identity is on offense,
yeah.
and how they're able to run the ball and control the clock and win that battle of the trenches. It kind of feels like a very poor man's Philadelphia Eagles.
Extremely poor.
Yes,
like Cleveland poor.
Like I think that they could, if they can control the line of scrimmage on both sides, this is like, maybe that's sort of the blueprint that they follow, that Eagles blueprint. And yeah.
Maybe. It's interesting.
What do you think of the Steelers in that division?
The division's going to be awesome. I think it's the best division of football, probably. At least
AFC North football.
Yeah, exactly.
Smash them all.
Smash them down. Yeah, I like the Steelers. I like all those teams. I think they.
So you got 3. You think you get 3 playoff teams out of there?
Well, if the Chiefs aren't making the playoffs,
that's true. You got an open spot.
Yeah, right. So, one team I don't think is gonna make the playoffs either. And I considered for I think it was 14-1 worst team in the entire league bet is the Indianapolis Colts. Instead, I found a little bit better number, not as much staked in the entire team. I like here in my mid shot, Anthony Richardson to lead the league in interceptions, 16-1 at FanDuel. It's not good when the quarterback you draft in the first round is shocked to learn that he'd be the week 1 starter, but that's exactly what happened with him a couple of last week. I'm not going to sit here and pretend to know much about Richardson. I didn't watch a ton of Florida football. I understand that, like, nobody in the entire league looks better in shorts and like
just enamored with the physique.
Yeah, and throws the ball a friggin' mile, runs insanely fast. I just think it's not a great situation for him to come into. It just is about to get even worse once they trade away Jonathan Taylor. Shane Steichen did great things in Philly with Jalen Hurts. There's no reason to believe one way or another. The jury's very much out on him and whether he can do it as a head coach. So you got a rookie quarterback who probably was overdrafted. You got a rookie head coach. It's not good. I mean, they play one of the easier schedules in the league, but even then, I think they're going to be one of the worst teams. You go back again, it's whatever. Florida wasn't very good, but they played a really tough schedule. He completed less than 54% of his passes last year. He threw 9 picks in 12 games playing against the SEC. I did some math. His interception rate was 2.8% last year. Again, there's no reason to. It's not going to be 2.8% necessarily, but you go back and look at Trevor Lawrence's rookie season. He had exactly a 2.8% interception rate, led the league in interceptions. So I think there's some similarity there. And I don't think he comes in with nearly the acclaim that Trevor Lawrence had, obviously. I just think, you look at, and I think he's going to get a chance to play. And clearly he's going to play early on. they made him a starter. I think they're gonna stick with him. We've
I was
seen
gonna say, he's probably gonna get a full 17-game run, right? Like you don't. I don't think you put him in there and then week 7 or 8 rolls around, all of a sudden you're like, oh crap, like we gotta pull the plug on this. Like
especially
you're getting the whole year probably.
Especially with this organization.
Yeah.
Because they let Andrew Luck play the entire season, his rookie year. He threw in 18 interceptions in 16 games. And Peyton Manning famously, or infamously, led the NFL in interceptions through 28 his rookie season. So they're going to let him play, I think, unless he gets hurt. And that's the thing. Like, he runs a ton. Is he going to put up enough volume to throw that many interceptions? I don't know. But, again, 16-1 for a rookie quarterback at a bad spot, and we're not even totally sure how good he is. That was too good for me to pass up. I think, they might win a couple of games because the division's so bad, so they might not be the worst team in the NFL, but I think they're going to be down there, and I think he's going to struggle, especially early, and maybe he just jumps out to a huge lead and can't be caught.
Yeah, I think the volume is the only concern for me, is if he throws it enough to be exposed that much.
Right.
But I'm with you on being down on them in general. Like I think you had mentioned a couple weeks ago, just looking at that, them as a most losses bet. And
yeah.
I could totally jump on board with that. It is the division that saves them to some extent, but there's a couple of teams that I just look at, like them being one, the Buccaneers being another one. But if I'm flipping a coin between those two, I'll take the value with the Colts. Yeah, that's a team that just there's not a lot of not good vibes surrounding that team right now. It feels like
it's a process. I think they've acknowledged that.
Yeah,
whether outwardly or inwardly. So, all right, let's get into our long shots.
Long shots. So these are 25-1.
These are technically longer than 25-1, but shorter than 100-1 because we have that as well. So
that's true. So it's long, but just don't get carried away.
Medium to long. Yeah.
Not too long.
Medium well.
So I'm gonna circle back to your Chiefs talk, because this kind of goes hand in hand with that, and I'm gonna take their division rival, the Chargers, to have the most wins.
Most regular season wins.
Most regular
any
season
team in the NFL.
Any team. The
Gotcha.
Chargers.
What's the number there?
30-1.
Oh, okay.
At both DraftKings and FanDuel, so pretty consistent across the board. So, if for all the reasons that you mentioned that we're down on the Chiefs, I think that obviously plays into this bet. There's a lot of overlap here. But just from a Chargers standpoint, when I'm looking at like a team that has the potential to rack up the most wins, like you look at the ceiling, right? Like I'm not even concerned about the floor, which, we've seen this team trip over its own feet plenty of times in the past. But from a purely ceiling standpoint, roster, like, the quarterback more than anything, I think we could agree that really this team has as high a ceiling as probably any in the NFL. Like, just the talent is there. It's just never really manifested itself. I think that this could be a season in which you see some of that, uncorked a little bit. You have the change at offensive coordinator going from Joe Lombardi to Kellen Moore. I think what we've seen from Herbert, like the skills are there, but he's just been in a really bad situation. Like, it still floors me that this is a guy who has the arm talent that he has, but ranked 31 of 33 qualified quarterbacks last season in intended air yards per pass attempt. Like, they just don't throw the ball downfield for a quarterback with that much talent. Like, that whole like offensive system has kind of just been wacky.
They've been chucking it in camp too. Like, according to all the reports, like they're finally throwing that, and they went out and got Quentin Johnston in the draft too. Like they're building around him, giving him the tools. They're giving him the tools to
giving
succeed.
him the tools, and this is like what we've seen in recent years from the really, really good teams, is that they're able to win the passing game battle, right?
Yep.
Like, you win offensively, you air it out, you push the ball downfield, and then defensively, you limit the opponent from a passing standpoint, because we've seen, their run defense for several years now has been terrible. Who cares?
But we have the same conversation about the Chiefs for years.
It's been the same thing. If you can rush the passer, defend the pass, and I think that they have the capability of doing that. I mean, you look at their defense, still plenty of talent there. Still, Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, Derwin James, one of the best safeties in the NFL. Their cornerback tandem. It's just, there's a lot there from a talent standpoint to fall back on in terms of shutting down opposing passing games. The other thing with them, though, is much like with the Ravens, it's been health. I mean, it's every year that they lose these one-score games. They lose guys to injuries. So it's just banking on everything kind of coming together at one point. But I think if it does, that ceiling's up there with anybody in the NFL. And at 30-1, I mean, this is a long shot bet. Am I expecting this to happen? Not necessarily, but there is most definitely a path for them to reach that regular season win total that not a lot of teams have. And look, they could lose in the first round for all I know. Like, that would be the most Chargers thing ever, right? When get the number 1 seed and lose your first playoff game. But at that point, who cares? Because I'm out spending whatever money I just had with the guy at the blood pressure machine at Stop and Shop. So most wins, Chargers, 30-1.
$13.8 million, he said. That's so much money. He was shorting stocks.
They're over under 9.5 wins, which is a pretty high total with juice to the over. So I mean, they're up there among the top win totals. So you know, it's not like,
I mean, you're buying.
This isn't just like a middle of the road, bottom tier type team that you're projecting to take this gigantic leap. It's just like, it's been there. It's staring you in the face. It's just a matter of it actually happening.
It's one of those ones where, like I say this all the time, if you squint hard enough, you can see it. You don't even really need to squint that hard to see this. I would say, though, like, if you're not blown away by that, like, I mean, we'll talk about MVP a little later, but Herbert 12-1 at DraftKings to win MVP is probably like a nice. That doesn't fit. That's not a. What are we calling these? That's not a mid shot or a long shot. I guess it is a mid shot. 12-1 MVP is like, at least it gives you a little more wiggle room. But hey, if you want to go big or go home,
for comparison's sake, Chargers. Let's see, at FanDuel, 21-1 to win the Super Bowl. 25-1 at DraftKings. So you're getting a little bit more value, and I would feel better about this than I would them winning the Super Bowl, because I do think there is that's still that knack for them to, once they get to the playoffs, like, would I feel good about them in a matchup with, say, Buffalo? I don't know, not necessarily. So they just feel like they're built for the regular season.
All right, for mine, I had 2 picks, and it comes down to right now where I'm going to make the decision. I will give out one for free. I like Jaden Reed, Packers receiver, offensive rookie of the year, 60-1. Guy flies. They're going to give him the ball in a bunch of different, scenarios. He's got a chance to kind of jump off the page. I would keep that name in mind. Jaden Reed, 60-1. For my pick here, though, for the record, let's just get into it. I'm taking Foster Moreau to win Comeback Player of the Year at 75-1. Now, there is a line of thinking, very clear and understandable, that Damar Hamlin steps on the field for 1 snap and he wins Comeback Player of the Year. I don't want to get into like debating whose thing is more impressive or whatever. My thing's going nuts. So Foster Moreau is coming back from. The only way to talk about this is to be like, what's more impressive, coming back from cancer or dying on the football field? But
isn't that like the nature of this award? That's why it's so tricky. Like, so much of it is centered around what the person's coming back from more so than what their production's going to be, which makes it an awkward conversation.
Yeah. And so, like, if you look at the list, so Damar Hamlin, minus 285, clear-cut favorite. I mean, odds-on favorite. Again, more likely than not, he's going to win it just by showing up. After him, at 20-1, Tua and Russell Wilson, whatever, who cares? Nobody cares about it. They have to be awesome for them to win this.
Yeah.
Even if Damar Hamlin didn't exist. Lamar Jackson, 25-1, Breece Hall, 25-1, John Mechie, 28-1, Cooper Kupp, 30-1, Trey Lance, Calvin Ridley, Matthew Stafford, Odell Beckham, Sam Darnold, Damian Pierce, Chase Young, DeAndre. You got to go all the way down. He's not even on this list. Foster Moreau. So, like, how are any of those guys better? Like Russell Wilson.
It raises like an interesting, like, philosophical thing, though, of like
what a comeback is.
At what point do you go from like being impressed by what it is they're coming back from. What point do the stats matter? Like, like if Cooper Kupp comes out this year,
right,
and had 2,500 receiving yards, like, are you like, well, that was so damn impressive that forget about that guy who collapsed on the field. Like, do you how do you get to that point? Like, does it matter? Like, in which case, just hand it out now.
I mean, would you like to bet? I think you're probably looking for a Deshaun Watson comeback player of the year.
I don't think the voters are gonna steer in that direction.
No, probably not. So like, I just think, like, if DeMar Hamlin was just, it would have been. I wish this for him, that he didn't have to go through this. Like, if he was just a guy that nobody knew about still and wasn't even on this list, shouldn't Foster Moreau be one of the front runners to win the award? Like, Hodgkins
have a good year too,
and so that's the thing. I like the situation for him. Yeah. New Orleans is going to be pretty good. He had some buzz early in camp. I think this was in mini camp, but he's going to challenge Juwan Johnson for the starting role. Like, Johnson had some flash at times last year, but Moreau's got the familiarity with Derek Carr going back to their days in Vegas or Oakland. So I don't know. Like, if he scores 6 touchdowns, is like the starting tight end for a team that contends for a playoff spot. And, like, what if DeMar Hamlin gets hurt week 2 and doesn't play the rest of the season? So now I sound like an asshole being like, what I'm hedging against the guy who died on the football field coming back in this great story. But what if he tears his ACL? So, but like 75-1 for a guy coming back from cancer feels like some value. And it just sounds so callous, and I feel like a complete
But it's there,
school.
It's there.
They put it there. What
it's
am I
there
supposed
for the
to
taking.
do?
Might as well capitalize.
I have already bet that in real life, real world. Foster Moreau 75-1 to win comeback player of the year at FanDuel. So.
I like that. I like that a lot, actually.
What's your Hail Mary bet, Ricky?
All right,
100-1 and longer.
These are tricky to find.
They're very hard to find.
Yeah, I was looking on every stone I could.
Love all of our friends at the sports books. They're not giving out much in terms of value whatsoever. You have to get a little creative, I think, in some regards.
Yes. But fortunately, our buddies over at FanDuel had some already pre-made parlays, I guess if you want to call them that. And that's where I looked for mine. And this is 130-1 for Christian McCaffrey to win Offensive Player of the Year and Nick Bosa to win Defensive Player of the Year.
Saw that one. You're not getting value, but that's whatever.
Yeah, if you do the math on it, you're better off, I'm sure, betting them. Yeah.
They won't let you do that though. So like if you like these two players,
you can't parlay them. You have to take this pre-made.
Yeah, exactly.
Set it and forget it.
Which would be funny if they were just like, oh yeah, we didn't realize you could do that. Nice job by you.
But so I was looking.
So what's the number?
It's 130-1.
Okay.
And so they have a ton of combinations that you can go with. That was the one that stood out to me.
Is Bosa holding out?
Bosa's holding out. Sounds like that situation's probably going to get resolved though.
This one came across my radar because I think McCaffrey in a full season with that offense could be awesome. And Bosa's a freak.
Yeah. Bosa's a freak. So, assuming his holdout ends and he takes the field, like he's among the 3 or 4 top candidates for Defensive Player of the Year. And Christian McCaffrey to me just seems like a perfect he could put up MVP production this year, but probably not going to win MVP because it always goes to a quarterback. So, that's sort of the de facto, we'll just give him Offensive Player of the Year. Because, you look last year at his usage, 440 receiving yards over the final 11 weeks of the season, obviously on top of what he's posted from a rushing yard standpoint. Averaged more yards per touch than everybody except for Tony Pollard in that stretch, which is pretty amazing when you consider his workload relative to Pollard's workload.
Yeah, and he just came there from a new, he got acclimated on the fly.
Now you got the full off season under your belt. And, given the, their quarterback situation, like I said earlier, where jury's still out a little bit on Brock Purdy. I don't think all of a sudden they're just going to become this high flying offense. It's going to be all built around Christian McCaffrey. So I think that's going to lead to a lot of opportunities for him to really pad the stats, and sort of, and slide into that Offensive Player of the Year conversation. The more I look at this, the more I like it. At 131, I like it. So.
Yeah, it's good value. Well, I mean, I guess it's not good value. There's probably a word that it's just a nice enticing payout.
Yeah,
that's the way to put
but it works for the purposes of this podcast.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, yeah, I get those are like the only ones I could really justify were those types of things. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna let the sportsbook beat me, so I'm making my own. So I also have a parlay here for the players of the year. My player of the year parlay. I got like Tyreek Hill to win Offensive Player of the Year 20-1, with Micah Parsons to win Defensive Player of the Year plus 450. The payout here is 114-1, 115-1. It's right in the middle. Hill, obviously, at 20-1 is the bigger question mark here. But you look at 3 of the last 4 Offensive Player of the Year winners have been receivers. A quarterback has won the award just once, dating back to 2017, so that does help both of us. Looking at this, where it's kind of like the consolation prize for being, I don't even know. I like, not to get off on a tangent, I don't know how you could be the MVP but not be the Offensive Player of the Year, but that makes no sense.
It is. It's a consolation prize. Like, wow, you were really good, but you're not a quarterback.
Yeah, and so like Tyreek Hill, absolute flawless fit in that offense with Mike McDaniel down there. He had a great season, like set career highs across the board, and that was with an uncertain situation, a quarterback situation with Tua. And obviously, if Tua gets concussed week 2 and has to retire right there, he's going to be this bet is probably dead, or maybe it's more likely to hit because now you're going to try to do it with Mike White, and they got better at the backup. So this isn't totally contingent upon Tua, but I like it a lot better if Tua is able to stay healthy. In 13 games last year, started by Tua. Tyreek Hill had 94 catches, 1,400 yards, 7 touchdowns, averaging 15 yards reception. I just think he could be a guy who puts up, potential borderline record-breaking numbers, has 2 or 3 monster games where he goes off for like 230 and 3 touchdowns and finds a way to kind of sneak in there. So,
what do you think of the East, the AFC East?
I think it's completely overrated across the board.
That's kind of my read.
Because I think it's kind of like it's the Chargers of the divisions. Like if everybody's good, it's going to be awesome.
Right.
Like the ceiling is pretty high. The ceiling is Super Bowl for 3 of those 4 teams, and the Patriots could be a playoff team, assuming that there's actual improvement on the offense. I just look at all those teams though, and I say like, well, there's a major flaw there. There's a major flaw there. I can see how this could go poorly. So I know that's kind of sitting on the fence, but I'm not totally sold on any of them.
Yeah, the Dolphins are one of those teams for me.
Exactly.
Especially, last year with the, Mike McDaniel's offense, it was something new.
Yeah.
It was like, wow, we haven't really seen this before. Now you get to the second year of it, it's like, does it still work?
Sure. They were really good with Tua though. Like,
really good, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they looked like a borderline Super Bowl team. Like Tua, you look at the MVP odds, is up near the top of the list.
Yeah.
Which seems hard to believe.
The thing with them, though, is I do wonder is, like, are they too top-heavy? This is beyond the quarterback. Like, if you lose one of Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle, their skill set is so conducive to that offense. And, like, if all of a sudden you lose one or both of those, like, do they have the receiver depth to then move the football in a way that they, like, relying on all those yards after the catch? Like, it just feels like it fits perfectly with their personnel. But if you start to lose some of that personnel, it's like, well, can you, like, I don't know if you can plug other guys in and replicate that, if that makes any sense.
No, you might, though. Like, that's the thing. I mean, the 49ers
but that's why it's like, for me, they're one of the more tricky teams in the NFL this year to figure out what the hell they're going to do.
Yeah, I would say, too, the defense is on a similar, similar path. Like, you already see it with Jalen Ramsey. Like, that feels like a major injury. But they went out and hired Vic Fangio, which is, like, maybe the biggest coordinator hiring of the offseason. So I could, like, again, it's just, they're hard to kind of pin down.
That's a team, yeah. Much like I was saying, like, with how the Chargers have that ability to kind of control the passing game, both offensively and defensively. Miami's in a similar boat.
True. They got Chubb who can rush the passer, and they got a decent secondary that will be much better once Ramsey gets healthy.
So I mean, they feel very much high floor. I don't want to say high ceiling. I don't want to say low floor, but you could see a path to them also going like, I don't know, 7 and 10.
Yeah, you lost me with your ceilings and your floor. I bet it's well air
I just
conditioned.
gotta make sure the walls
your apartment.
keep
Yeah,
these things intact.
And then
big bad wolf rolling through, just blowing it all down.
Micah Parsons, defensive player of the year, plus 450. Not a ton of value there, but I kind of leverage it. His resume is insane. Defensive rookie of the year in 2021, runner-up for player of the year, defensive player of the year, runner-up for defensive player of the year last year, 8th in MVP voting. He was an all-pro, 13.5 sacks. Sounds like he's going to have an even stronger emphasis on the pass rush this year. He says he wants to play more defensive end as opposed to linebacker, but he's going to be all over the field still. Again, he's a freak. So, again, it's basically. This comes down to Tyreek Hill probably because I think Parsons is going to win a defensive player of the year at some point. It's just a matter of when. So. Anyway,
right on.
Cool, that was fun. So you want to do a quick MVP and Super Bowls and get out of here?
I mean, yeah. I guess we can kind of talk through them. I don't even really know where I'm going.
Do you have an MVP pick?
So,
because I have one. So
I know you do, and I think I'm on the same page as you. So I don't want to steal your pick, but
okay. So I have Lamar Jackson, 16-1, no MVP. I just like.
There's only so many ways you can go with it, right? I mean, it's going to be a quarterback, so that in and of itself limits you to 32.
So you can have like the choice of Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. Those guys are like less than 10-1. Like,
right.
I don't want
So
I'm
I in that second crop.
Yep.
Which is
from like
Lamar,
Herbert at 12.
Herbert,
if you want to include, but I don't even want.
Yeah.
It starts at Lamar, and it's like it takes very little time to get to Geno Smith at 30.
Right. So like that, I view that second crop as like Herbert because is fringe 1 or 2.
Yeah, because he's in between.
Lamar, Jalen Hurts, and then like. And if I'm going beyond that, then I'm looking at like Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields, like one of those young quarterbacks that still that you've already seen enough, but also has that extra layer that they can get to. Yeah. Because then, to your point, once you get beyond that, it's like, the Kirk Cousins of the world.
Like I said, Geno is 30-1. It's like, what are we doing?
And like what their ceiling is, and it's never gonna come anywhere close to matching what you're gonna see from Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen
and Burrow.
Joe Burrow.
Burrow's the other one. Like, there's those three guys at the top. If it's somebody from outside of those three, then I like Lamar at 16-1 a lot.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on him. I think he's gonna have a huge year.
I mean, he's got the contract stuff behind him. They went out and got Odell Beckham Jr. He says he's fully healthy. Mark Andrews is still somehow underrated. He's a fantastic security blanket. We saw that game. Like, we saw his ceiling, Lamar. I mean, we already know his ceiling, but like when he came into, was it last year they came to Foxborough and just absolutely dump trucked the Patriots? Yeah. He was so good in that game. And just like the injury, the contract stuff was huge. They went out and drafted Zay Flowers, who's gotten a lot of buzz early on. They brought in Todd Monken from Georgia. He's basically letting Lamar run the offense. It feels like that kind of thing had gotten kind of stale. Again, it's more of a value pick than anything else, but this guy's won the award before, so it's not I don't think it's a long shot either. So.
Yeah, last 10 winners, all quarterbacks. Only 3 non-quarterbacks since 2001.
Yeah,
which all 3 of those were running backs.
These guys are too busy winning Offensive Player of the Year.
Exactly. And since 2001, every MVP winner was on a team that won at least 11 games. So that's the other layer to it, too. It's like your team's going to be really good, obviously. Yep. And
you think they're going to be really good.
So I think they're going to be really good. And that second tier is, I'm looking at like Herbert, Jackson, Hurts, and Jackson's the one that stands out to me because, as you mentioned, he's already won it before. Yep. We know he can win it. So, but if you wanted to get crazy and go like Lawrence or Fields, like I said, that I guess you could talk me into that because I feel like those teams might.
I just
take a step forward.
Like Lawrence makes a lot of sense. It's the same number.
That's true. It's not.
I could see Lawrence winning it,
I'll take the better, more proven player on a team that is probably better. Like,
and he's a cooler guy. Like he's got.
He's gonna have the. I mean, that's
the highlight reel.
That's
is
legit part of it, right?
Yeah.
Like that's. The voters will claim it isn't a factor, but I guarantee you, sitting there voting.
I haven't looked at the Jaguars' schedule, but I have to imagine the Ravens play more primetime games. He's a guy who's going to generate more highlights that you're going to see on TikTok and wherever the highlights are now. Like he's just
so I guess that's why
MVP voters probably aren't on TikTok, but that's a whole other story.
But maybe that's why Fields isn't completely off the table because he has that. He can pop a little bit
next year. Can I bet on Justin Fields to win MVP next year at a number that's slightly less than 25-1? Can I have him at 21 next year?
I mean, we'll take it offline. Maybe I can get you in touch with a guy.
Very good. Yeah. So I don't know. It's interesting that we're on the same page there. Who's your Super Bowl pick? And then we'll get out of here.
I'm gonna go to Battle of the Birds. I'm gonna take the Eagles over the Ravens. We've talked enough about the Ravens. We're both high on them. But I think the Eagles just top to bottom, the most well-rounded roster. Like I just love the way they're built. I feel like they've only gotten better. They had a great draft.
They did. Yeah, that's a good point.
Great draft. So you're basically just infusing this really good young talent into an already loaded roster. I think they can just beat you so many ways in that NFC. Nobody. I think they're the most talented team in the NFL, and then when it comes to the NFC, it's just like,
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, it's really in the NFC. It's them, San Fran, Dallas. I don't know. It's a real trash conference. But yeah, let's just give me the best team.
That's fair.
I don't always love taking the team that just went to the Super Bowl, but in this case, it's
a slightly different situation.
It's hard to find reasons to not back them.
Yep. So for mine, I got the Bengals over the Cowboys. Bengals, I just think it's inevitable that Joe Burrow gets one of these. Yeah, if he gets hurt, they're obviously screwed, but they are still at a point where their young core is not ready to get paid through the nose, so they haven't had to make those tough decisions. This is the time for them to go win it. They've obviously gotten close by getting the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. They can go on the road and beat anyone in the playoffs. I mean, it's just again, feels, you hate to say inevitable when it comes to a team winning the Super Bowl, but it does kind of feel inevitable with them. And I like them to, like I said, to beat the Cowboys. The Cowboys, I'm not totally sold on the offense. Mike McCarthy is Mike McCarthy. I don't love Dak Prescott either, but I think that's an elite defense that is going to be probably the best in the entire NFL. I think they can go on the road and beat a team like Philly in the playoffs if they had to, because the defense will travel. I mean, you're asking a ton of Dak Prescott, who hasn't necessarily, I mean, they haven't. Like, they have not advanced deep into the playoffs really under him. But picking the Cowboys is more of a value pick and trying to look smart, probably more than anything else, because of how bad the NFC is. So, I was looking at it. FanDuel has, if you're looking to get really down and weird, you can bet the Super Bowl matchup. This one is 44-1, and for the Bengals to win and beat the Cowboys is 75-1. So I actually might look at that 75-1 and maybe look at whatever it is over the Eagles, because I do think it's going to be the Cowboys or the Eagles coming out of the NFC.
So this is very much the same conversation as the MVP thing, right? Where it's like there's only a select few really going into the season.
We think.
Like I'm having a hard time identifying anybody really down the board, and I think that recent history has shown that it's going to be one of these top teams.
Because there's a handful of teams that I think are going to be better than people realize.
But just not Super Bowl.
It's just not Like, I think the Packers could go to the playoffs, but they're not going to win the Super Bowl.
Exactly. Yeah.
Even though people love the Lions, I'm still not ready to say the Lions are going to even come close to contending for a Super Bowl.
So to that point, like the last 5 Super Bowl champions, they were all 12-1 or shorter to win the Super Bowl to open the season. Ranking 3rd, 4th. 3rd, 2nd, and 1st in preseason odds.
For as much parity as there is week to week, it's just when
you get to the end and it's the Chiefs, or
Yep.
It's so I looking at that for this year. Like there's, I think it's 8 teams with 18-1 or shorter. So Kansas City, Philadelphia, Buffalo, Cincinnati, San Francisco, Dallas, Baltimore, and the Jets. And I'm out on the Jets. So that's about a 7-team crop that I'm picking from.
Yeah, right.
And it feels like you're kind of in that same boat.
Yep.
And I look down the page, and it's like like you said, like there's plenty of teams that they might exceed their win total. You're not winning the Super Bowl.
No. Unless something like a lot of weird stuff would have to happen, and I just don't. That doesn't.
Like Cleveland Browns, 30-1.
There you go.
Trying to endear myself to the city of Cleveland right now.
Do you have anything else?
No, it's good to be back.
It is good to be back. I look forward to catching up with you about Deshaun Watson every week, see how that stock watch is going. Yeah, we'll try to add a few new wrinkles to the process this year.
Yeah.
Maybe some blankets.
Yeah. I don't want to say show and tell's coming back.
Show and tell.
Hey, maybe it's on the table.
So, I'm like, to go back to your original point. I'm excited for football to be back. I just got a notification that says Starbucks has a third pumpkin drink to its fall menu, so we're getting into.
I meant to mention that
season.
earlier too. Maybe that's part of it because I also was doing. We should have went grocery shopping together because I was messing around in the grocery store as well, and I've noticed that there's a lot of pumpkin stuff coming out, and it feels a little too early for that. I think that's getting me in the zone as well.
I had a pumpkin spice coffee the other day. I was just like, it was so like the weather was so nice. And
yeah.
It's just what's a great way to ruin it. You don't like pumpkin spice, do you?
Not coffee, no.
You like your coffee black.
It's just very plain.
Yeah, that's understandable.
I try some of the Snickers one that we.
It's so bad. The coffee
gives me a headache.
Terrible. It tastes like sweet and plastic.
Yeah, I don't do that. I don't mess around with. I realize that cold brew I'm not even really in on. Like cold brew in general, not just here, gives me a headache.
Cold brew I remember when Starbucks first came out with cold brew, or maybe when I was first realized that they had it. I drank it and I was like wired for probably 10 hours.
I guess
straight.
I just don't
it's
get it.
Super strong.
I don't get the appeal.
And now I'm at the age where if you have that after 11 a.m., there's no chance of sleeping either. So, all right, let's get out of here. We've already wasted time of too many people. We'll get back to talking about our own mortality more as the season goes on. I think that's basically what this podcast will turn into, is something of a self-help podcast for ourselves. So,
more or less.
All right, Ricky, it's good to be back. We'll do this again in a couple weeks for week 1. Until then, thanks for joining us on The Spread. We'll see you again next week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks from now. See you then.
Whatever.
Week 1. Bye.
See ya.